In 2016, Shin Godzilla rewrote Japanese film history. Why did this monster movie by Hideaki Anno resonate so deeply with so many Japanese people? The answer lies 70 years in the past. Back when the original Godzilla was released in 1954, the monster movie genre itself didn't even exist. The moment Godzilla first appeared on screen, the whole audience was buzzing. A huge, inexplicable something attacks Japan. It was pure horror. The fear that Japan is cursed by something. That was the original Godzilla's true nature. And at the root of that fear is nuclear weapons. On August 6, 1945, the world's first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. The route Shin Godzilla takes to land is exactly the same as the planned U.S. invasion route of the Japanese mainland. Hideaki Anno knew these historical facts inside out when he revived Godzilla in the modern age. Shin Godzilla isn't just a monster movie. It's a heartfelt question that directly addresses Japan's post-war history and the fear of nuclear weapons. Toshio Okada gets to the heart of it.
Good evening, this is Toshio Okada. July 31st, the last day of July, this is my 5th Nico Nico livestream. Today, I'm going to try to talk about Shin Godzilla without spoilers. I'd like to talk about Shin Godzilla without spoilers. Looking at the comments, you guys are already spoiling it. Hey, delinquents, some people haven't seen it yet. Those who saw it and were moved know, right? Once you know, the fun is halved. Seriously, we're all Godzilla fans, why are we dragging each other down? From now on, that I know it all thing, let's stop acting like 5th graders. We're at least in 8th grade, so we have some middle school pride. So, thanks for watching. So, today, I'm going to talk about the 5 reasons why you absolutely have to see Shin Godzilla on the public broadcast. And, if we have some time, I'm not sure, but what was 1966? If the year America was born was 1927, then the monster movie genre was established and had a short golden age in 1966, so I'd like to talk about looking at that year, 1966, from the perspective of monster movies. Also, today, Goboten-san is here. Dwango Isuda-san, as you can tell from the sound of his laughter, is here at my place. Isuda-san has a project he wants to pitch, so today, too, I'm going to listen and then reject it halfway through. In the second half, after we go to the members-only broadcast, spoilers are okay, and conversely, I'll talk about the reasons why Shin Godzilla is still bad. I'm gonna give you 5 reasons. So, 5 reasons why you absolutely have to see it, and 5 reasons why it's no good. I'm gonna do those on separate general and premium broadcasts. Either way, you won't know unless you see it, so the reasons why it's no good are just Toshio Okada's opinion, so go to the theater to check it out. Okay, let's start. Shin Godzilla, I saw it in IMAX last night in Shinjuku, and there are 5 reasons why you absolutely have to see it. First, Hideaki Anno can't do live action. It overturned the stereotype that Japanese special effects films are bad. Seriously, isn't that amazing? I mean, should I say that Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi have been making movies from last year to this year? Special effects films have been bad for a long time. Attack on Titan, Terra for Mars, and then Shin Godzilla. This jump is amazing, from bad to great. I thought anime live-action adaptations were no good, but seeing these 3 in a row, in other words, rather than Hideaki Anno's or Shinji Higuchi's works, recently, Japanese anime or live-action adaptations of special effects films have had a tendency to fail, or almost fail, but this completely overturned that. This will be a great trend for business as well. Before Spider-Man was successful, Hollywood, like around Batman and Robin, around that time, box office revenue wasn't good, and people stopped investing in those kinds of movies. So, Hollywood movies were a bit stagnant for a while, but the Avengers series started, from Iron Man. So, after the industrial revenue got really good, more investors started appearing for SF-ish images, around the time of Independence Day, maybe? So, I think this had a huge impact on the film world. So, conversely, I kinda wanna grill Shinji Higuchi, why his stuff was so bad up until now. His Japan Sinks was pretty good, though, I thought. Japan Sinks was pretty good. Lorelei was pretty good, Japan Sinks was pretty good, but why did Attack on Titan turn out so bad? This time, even though it's the same director, Godzilla. I don't get why the level has risen so much. I kinda wanna grill him about it. Anyway, he's back this time, finally showing his true ability. The film industry itself had always looked down on the SF genre, no matter what. They said that top-tier actors wouldn't appear in them. During Yamazaki's space battleship Yamato, because Takuya Kimura was in it, I've talked about this on Nico Nico livestream many times, because Takuya Kimura was in it, the budget got bigger, so, because Yamazaki directed it, because it was a movie that Yamazaki would direct, the art team and set designers worked hard and the movie quality went up. Well, it sounds like a good story, but no matter what, SF is looked down upon. This time, they're properly calling it political fiction, but for example, The War of the Worlds or Children of Men, they call those political fiction instead of science fiction. If Tokyo was suddenly enveloped in fog one day, and no one could enter, what would happen to Japan? On a larger scale, Japan Sinks is like that too. In that situation, how would the Japanese people, how would the government act? They properly wrote a scenario as political fiction. In that respect, Shin Godzilla is. It's strange to say it's really noteworthy, but it's like, oh, so this is how Godzilla movies can be depicted. I don't think I'm spoiling anything, right? That's what I think. Also, if you look at it as a Hideaki Anno work, even though it's a disaster movie, it's the first time one of his films is self-contained. This time, without any extra stuff, it actually ends properly, proving Hideaki Anno can do it if he tries. If you look at Eva and his other works, instead of ending properly in one film, they either cut off abruptly or became a to-be-continued thing, but he actually created and completed one work, so it's a really good piece. So, instead of forcing Eva, like next is Eva, maybe he should just avoid Eva altogether. What Anno should do next, I think it's Ultraman. Well, with the exact same stance as Godzilla, director Shinji Higuchi, general director Hideaki Anno, image concept by Mahiro Maeda, designed by Takaya Takeya, I don't mind at all, whether a strange monster comes from space or from underground, whatever its identity, something unknown, with a strange shape, probably an Ultraman systematized like Anno's, one that emits a tremendous amount of spatium energy. Well, maybe the Science Special Search Party and the Ultra Guard should become UN-affiliated facilities, and if they create something like NRV, it'll be like EVA, so I think, EVA doesn't have to be in that format, does it? So, I'm looking forward to Ultraman next. Also, the second point. Born in this era, basically, special effects fans born from the 1960s to around 1970, almost all of them have a longing for this original Godzilla. They have an absolute admiration for the 1954 Godzilla, and at the same time, they have very complex feelings towards the era of Godzilla movies and the Godzilla series. If you keep this in mind when watching Shin Godzilla, you can enjoy it even more. Why did they make this movie? If you understand that, you can enjoy it. So, first of all, I'd like to start by talking about the basics. In order to talk about the impact of the 1954 Godzilla, I've made a flip about Godzilla's first appearance. It's made up of 3 photos. This is a scene from about 20 minutes into the movie, but finally, Godzilla is beyond the mountains, and everyone feels a strange vibe beyond the mountains. It's Godzilla's footsteps, but without knowing it, the villagers, or rather, the people of the island, are climbing the mountain path, and a large shadow moves beyond the island. And when they shout "Ah!", Godzilla appears from beyond. This is his first appearance. When he shows his face, everyone panics and runs away, screaming "Yua!" And then Godzilla roars beyond that. That's how it goes. This was received with tremendous impact. Looking back now, a monster appearing from beyond the mountains and roaring is a common scene, and this kind of special effects composition is just simple compositing, or you can see the monster from beyond the mountains, but anyway, there were no monster movies at that time. So, I found a witness who can tell us well about the situation at that time. The witness is, who could it be? Hayao Miyazaki. Hayao Miyazaki told Ikeda Kensho, a special effects researcher, with great pride, Ikeda Kensho wasn't even born in 1954. So, of course, he didn't see Godzilla in the theater. Most of the Japanese special effects researchers weren't born in 1954, so they didn't see Godzilla in the theater, but Miyazaki did. Miyazaki properly took his younger brother to the theater and saw it there. The seats were all taken, so people were lined up around the theater many times. That was on the second day of release. Even on the second day, it was that crowded, because in the days before the internet or Twitter, it spread by word of mouth. It spread like wildfire, people saying, "That movie's awesome." Hayao Miyazaki, with a ton of people hyping it up, went to see it with his younger brother on the second day. You can kind of tell how bourgeois Miyazaki's family is from this, right? A family that can go to the movies with their younger brother on the second day, without their parents. Well, anyway, that's how he went. He took his brother, couldn't even get seats, and grabbed onto the back of the seats in the back of the theater, holding on tight, watching with his brother, and then, the moment Godzilla first peeked its head out, the moment it popped its head out from here, he said he could see the heads of everyone in the theater being snatched off. So, because he could see everyone's heads in the theater being snatched off in order from the front, he said people's heads were licked off. Yeah, you absolutely wouldn't understand unless you saw it in the theater back then, he apparently went on and on about, wanting to say that. That's how shocking it was. For the people who saw it, they perceived it as quite a scary movie. Because Godzilla wasn't in the kaiju movie genre, an enormously large monster attacks for no reason. It's completely in the context of a horror movie. Everyone's watching it like The Ring or Ju-on. So, it's scary. Because there's no genre or category for giant monsters, something like that attacks for no reason, and you wonder if you're cursed. You get the feeling that Japan is cursed, and you receive it with a sense of fear. So, this first Godzilla had a huge impact. Ikeda Kenshircho, a leading expert in special effects research, was even bragged to by Hayao Miyazaki. Well, this first Godzilla was a legendary movie for a long time. Because it's a black and white movie, by the time I was in elementary school, it definitely wasn't playing in theaters anymore. Movies were all in color by then, and it wasn't being revived in theaters either. And it wasn't even broadcast on TV. It was like this Phantom movie, a masterpiece, and I wanted to see the monster movie so badly, but I was like, how am I supposed to watch it? Only stories about the movie spread. In 1978, when I turned 20, I finally got into college a year late after graduating high school. When I slipped into college in 1978, I created an SF club, and well, it was a light club, but it was about to collapse, so I rebuilt it, and held a screening there. But I didn't know how to hold a screening, so I acted like a complete idiot, looked up Tsuburaya Productions' phone number, and called them. I said, "Please let us screen Godzilla," and the person at Tsuburaya Productions was very used to it, very calm. "If we have this, it's a planet-destroying weapon. We'll show you planet destruction. If we have this, no alien will ever try to invade Earth again. The reason is, if they try to invade Earth, they'll be retaliated against with this or one. So, for that purpose, we'll investigate turning Gellenstar into dust. Gellenstar, you see, nobody lives there. So, let's launch our one. Dan Moriboshi opposes it, right? What's the point of doing that?" Then, even within the Ultra Guard, they're like, "What are you talking about? First, Earth has this super weapon called R1. And, unless we let the universe know that we have the power to retaliate, there's no point in having this weapon. Even if we do that, the universe will only be drawn into war." In response to that, they say, "What are you talking about? To stop the fighting, to make sure no one ever tries to invade Earth again, aren't we using R1 for that purpose?" And they share the launch of R1. I mean, is it really okay to do this in the 1960s? Is this like last week's story about North Korea? Something like that. Like, Ultra 7 super weapon R1. Even that, they try not to call it a nuclear weapon. In Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, in Episode 1, when the Macross is finally about to launch, the Zentradi attack, and Valkyries and fighters fly out to meet them, and there are explosions in the air, they use the term reaction weapon. It's because they really can't use the term nuclear weapon. From thermonuclear reaction, they call it a reaction weapon, and there's a scene where the Zentradi are surprised that there are still barbaric people who use reaction weapons. Nuclear weapons appearing in anime and manga like that isn't that unusual. Actually, as far as I know, the only times nuclear weapons themselves were used as a last resort against monsters were in Cloverfield and Return of the Living Dead. That's a zombie movie, but in the end, the zombie-infested city is destroyed with a nuclear weapon, which is amazing. And then there's EVA Episode 1. They say in 2 mine, but that's gotta be nuclear, right? The N has gotta be for nuclear, even though the setting says it doesn't emit radiation. Yeah, if we have this, it's a planet-destroying weapon. We'll show you planet destruction. No alien will ever try to invade Earth again. The reason is, if they try to invade Earth, they'll be retaliated against with this R1. So, for that we'll investigate turning Gelen Star into dust. Gelen Star, you see, nobody lives there. So, let's launch our. Dan Moriboshi opposes it, right? What's the point of doing? Then, even within the Ultra Guard, they're like, what are you talking about? Earth has this super weapon called R1. Unless we let the universe know that we have the power to retaliate, there's no point in having this weapon. Even if we do that, the universe will only be drawn into war. They say, what are you talking about? To make sure no one ever tries to invade. Aren't we using R1 for that purpose? And they share the launch of R1. I mean, is it really okay to do this in the 1960s? Is this like last week's story about North Korea? Like, Ultra 7 super weapon R1. Even that, they try not to call it a nuclear weapon. In Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, in Episode 1, when the Macross is finally about to launch, the Zentradi attack. And Valkyries and fighters fly out to meet them. And there are explosions in the air. They use the term reaction weapon. Because they really can't use the term nuclear weapon. From thermonuclear reaction, they call it a reaction weapon, and there's a scene where the Zentradi are surprised that there are still barbaric people who use reaction weapons. Nuclear weapons appearing in anime and manga like that. Isn't that unusual? Actually, as far as I know, the only times nuclear weapons themselves were used as a last resort against monsters were in Cloverfield and Return of the Living Dead. That's a zombie movie, but in the end, the zombie-infested city is destroyed with a nuclear weapon, which is amazing. And then there's EVA Episode 1. They say in 2 mine, but that's nuclear, right? The N has, even though the setting says it doesn't emit radiation. Yeah, right, it's a nuclear weapon, a reaction weapon. So, nuclear weapons. In movies, they're like the ultimate trump card, I guess. As a thing, they always show up. Well, I feel bad for talking about this in a row while laughing, but on August 6, 1945, the world's first atomic bomb, was dropped on Hiroshima. So, the other day on a Kansai TV show, I was talking to a guy named Muraka, an African guy who used to do Suzuki Munio impressions from Congo, and he said that the nuclear material in the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki came from Congo. At the time, Congo was a French territory, and it seems it was diverted from France. So Japan and Congo have a deep connection. I can't help but think we had a connection even back then. So, why did America drop the atomic bomb on Japan? It'll connect to Godzilla later, so please bear with me. Why did they drop the bomb? Every August 6th, we offer our condolences, vowing never to let it happen again, and wonder who's to blame. People often say that America dropped the bomb even though they were winning the war. Because they looked down on Asians, and some say it ended the war. Indeed, in America, opposing the atomic bomb makes you an oddball. That's because World War II, compared to the Vietnam or Gulf Wars, was overwhelmingly a just war, according to most, a war to save the world from the hands of fascism. That's the American view, a good war to save the world from fascism. The reason for this is that there was originally Operation Downfall. What was Operation Downfall? It was the invasion plan for the Japanese mainland. America had been preparing for it since the 1943 Cairo Conference. Operation Downfall meant dropping many atomic bombs on the Japanese mainland, unconditionally spreading large amounts of chemical weapons like sarin before invading Tokyo. Operation Downfall consisted of the first phase, Operation Olympic. And the second phase, Operation Coronet. The first phase, Operation Olympic, was the landing operation on southern Kyushu. Scheduled for November 1, 1945. Landing off the coast of Miyazaki in the Satsuma Peninsula. And landing in Japan while spreading sarin on a large. The American military anticipated 250,000 American casualties. In other words, they the largest number of American troop casualties in World War II. The next, Operation Coronet, was on March 1, 1946. Finally, they considered invading the mainland of Tokyo. The reason they invaded Kyushu in Operation Olympic first was because they wanted to make Kyushu a huge base. They wanted to make Kyushu a huge base, put 10,000 B-29s there, and bomb all of Japan, including Osaka and Tokyo, from there. The reason they had to consider that was because the Japanese army's resistance was really tough around Tokyo and the Philippines. You could say it's the tenacity of the Japanese, but conversely, it thoroughly terrified the Westerners, especially the Americans. So, how much do we have to do to win the war? How much can we do before we get international condemnation? If the Japanese army used chemical weapons on the Chinese front, we should be allowed to use chemical weapons as well. So, it was decided to use sarin gas. In the Tokyo landing operation, the Shonan Coast to Sagamihara Machida route, the same as Godzilla's route this time, Godzilla's fourth form route, right? That was the landing route. And the Chiba route coming from Kyushu. A route to invade Tokyo from the port of Japan in 10 days was considered. This involved over 1 million soldiers, and it was estimated that 270,000, more than a quarter of them, would die. Up to this point, it's the US military's plan. But Japan had already, in fact, the Japanese military had detected it. They knew about Operation Olympic and Operation Coronet. In other words, they were aware of Operation Downfall, which was the overall plan. So Japan had its own plan. What kind of plan did they have? The 100 million die to. We hear about it, but they actually had a plan. That was, all men from 15 to 60 years old. And all women from 17 to 40 years old, all the citizens at that time. 26 million people, already in the Army, Navy, and Air Force.